pod bay doors, please, Hal.
We lost, by the way, but, you know.
Guys, I'm sorry. No, there's a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
Moonlight won. Come on, this is not a joke. This is not a joke. I'm afraid they read the wrong thing.
This is not a joke. Moonlight has won Best Picture. Moonlight, Best Picture.
The pod bay doors are open. Welcome once again. I'm your host, Jerry Dean Roberts of ArmchairCinema.com and OverThinkingOscar.wordpress.com. Here with my co-host, who definitely will not look blue in the moonlight. He is the critic.
I won't even disappear in the moonlight.
A critic for TalkMovie.com. You know him, you love him. It's Mr. Doug Heller. How the heck are you today, sir?
Let me tell you something, man. There are black people everywhere. You remember that, okay? No place you can go in the world ain't got no black people. We was the first on this planet. Oh, I love that line. Yeah, no, I am bioluminescent. I am...
Well, you have to understand what I'm looking at. We're doing this on Google Hangout, and all I see is his big giant head.
Which...
Bald as an onion.
Yeah.
You know.
By choice.
And white as can be.
Yeah, when I go out, the greatest
and
gift,
I should talk.
The greatest gift to me was a Woody Allen line when I discovered it. He said, you know, I'm fair-haired and pale-skinned. I don't tan, I stroke.
Yeah.
That's me. That's me.
Welcome to the laugh-filled riot. We're talking about Moonlight.
This movie is
Black History Month. We're celebrating Black History Month. This is my choice. And I want to say this right off the top. Academy Award winner for Best Picture of the Year.
Yes. And Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yes.
Probably should have been director. Anyway,
it could have been just the screenplay.
Yeah, and
which I expected
that's
it to be.
What everybody expected because it's a movie about a black kid that's going through the realization that he's gay, and that kind of movie, even 10, 15 years ago would have been exclusively at Sundance.
Yeah.
And
the Independent Spirit Awards.
Right, and that would have been it. People in film would have known about it, but it wouldn't have gotten the traction. And it might have actually been at that point one of those gay cowboys eating pudding. Movies that Sundance was so famous for in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
The South Park.
This might have, if this were 1991, it would have come out. It would have garnered some critic nominations, and then it would have disappeared on video.
Yeah. Probably to be picked up by the Criterion Collection years later.
But had it not been for the Oscar So White scandal, this may never have happened.
It might not have.
And this was a shock.
Yes.
To the entire world.
Because everybody figured Lily White La La Land was going to win.
And La La Land is a good movie.
It is.
Know what I said? Good movie.
Yeah.
It's a fine film. It's Damien Chazelle. It's a good movie.
It's a well-directed film.
But it's safe. It's lighthearted. It's safe. It doesn't challenge you in any way.
Right, and it posits that a white man knows more about the history and tradition of jazz than a black man.
There you go. But
boy, did that tick me off.
I remember the night that this won.
Me too.
Because as is tradition, because it is the Oscars and they're on Sunday nights, I have an Oscar party, and my party guests never reach the finish line. They usually peace out about an hour before because everybody's got to go to work.
Yeah.
They all went home. Everybody thought that La La Land. Everybody thought this was a foregone conclusion. They started to ramp up to the last award of the evening. My wife went to bed, or was getting ready to go to bed, and I'm standing in my living room watching this. And they announced, because Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, because it was the 50th anniversary of Bonnie and Clyde. Kids, if you don't know this, this is why I'm reiterating this. They were reading it, and Warren Beatty opened the envelope.
And it was the wrong envelope.
And he was taking a while to read. It was taking a while.
Yeah, because he could
figure it
see
out.
Best Actress,
Emma
Stone, La La Land, and he's like, this isn't what we're supposed to be announcing. What do I do?
Looked at the envelope, and she named La La Land Best
She
Picture.
just saw the name of the movie at the bottom.
And she and all the producers came up, and they all said their thank yous. And about halfway through, there's some commotion going on.
Producer is giving his thanks.
We lost
and he goes,
anyway.
Well, it doesn't matter. We lost anyway. Everybody's like, what the hell is he talking about?
And the first producer comes back, and he says, there's been a terrible mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And he holds up the envelope.
And and I love when he said, when he found out, he said he requested that he get to go up and say that, because he'd gotten to know the Moonlight people. They'd all gotten to be close during the award season because they were nominated against each other for like everything. And they got to be friends. On this
journey with us.
Yeah, they got to be friends. And he's like, it gives me great pleasure to say you won Best Picture. It's like, I don't get to go home with an Oscar, but I'm super happy for you guys.
They were so gracious.
Yes, they were.
And good sportsmanship. They were it was so wonderful the way they handled it.
Yes.
But what happened was that the way this happens is this. The accounting firm that tabulates the results, sends two individuals with locked briefcases. And in those briefcases are all of the winning envelopes.
Right.
And they are not opened. That briefcase is not opened until the show starts.
Right. The only people that know what the contents are the accountants that were assigned to that count.
Yeah, that leads to that great joke from Robin Williams where he's standing between the two people. He's like, so you guys know who won, huh? Say, hey, how about we open these suckers up and bang, we go to the party. Then he looks at the audience and says, I'm sorry, folks, we have to do this show. But yeah, they have all of the envelopes. Now, each briefcase has two envelopes in it with the same name on it. There's two envelopes for every category. The one that they give to the presenter, who then gives to the winner to keep. And another is a backup just in case they lose that one. And what happened was the guy who was supposed to be in charge of it,
picked up the safety instead of the last envelope, and
Pop got Janko, look what I got.
Yeah.
Picked up the wrong envelope, and it was the duplicate for Best Actress, which had already been given out. And they gave that to Warren Beatty because he was backstage doing selfies and, hanging out with celebrities and wasn't watching what he was doing.
Well, and the guy handing them out, I think, is more culpable because that was his job.
Well, yeah, he was the one.
He had one job.
One job. Works for an accounting firm. Okay?
one job and he loused it up. And
But he was backstage and he was doing selfies and hanging with celebrities and all this stuff. He wasn't watching what he was doing, and he handed him the wrong envelope. It made for an exciting moment.
Yeah, it made for a very embarrassing moment.
It made for an embarrassing moment, but honestly, to find out that Moonlight won in that way.
Yeah.
I was watching the clip again this morning. It's still exhilarating. That they would that they would choose a film like this. Again, and I've said this over and over again, not a white face in this movie at all, anywhere.
No.
And it's not a story that you can transfer.
No.
Moonlight is not a story that you can transfer. You can't take this character and put a white person in it.
No, sure, you cannot make Chiron white.
This is directed by Barry Jenkins, by the way, who is a phenomenal director.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
I still regret that If Beale Street Could Talk wasn't nominated for more things.
I was thrilled that Regina King won the award.
I'm happy she won an Oscar because she's remarkable and she was really good in that. But the fact that it wasn't even nominated for Best Picture, doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Well, that Best Picture list that year was problematic anyway. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody, Green Book, yeah. And he hasn't directed that much stuff. He's
he did a lot of shorts. He's an independent filmmaker. He's trying to get money, and now he can get it. Thankfully. And
he's doing a TV series about the Underground Railroad,
which will hopefully be better than Harriet, the movie.
But I saw this during award season, like on a Tuesday night, and I knew nothing about it. I had heard about the film. I had heard that it was garnering all this attention. The poster tells you nothing. I didn't even get it.
Although, after you've seen the movie,
you understand.
You understand it, and it's a perfect poster.
Yeah.
For the film.
I didn't want to see it.
Oh.
Because I thought I don't know. I guess it just wasn't in the mood. I'm like, I really don't want to watch this, but I went and I sat there, and it was in one of the back auditoriums, one of the smaller auditoriums, and it was packed.
Yeah, my screening was packed too.
It was sold out.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I watched it, and it's one of those rabbit hole movies where you're in it from the first second, and you don't come back out of it mentally or emotionally for the next 2 hours. Once I began to figure out exactly what this movie was and what it was trying to say, I was absolutely in it, and it's devastating.
Yeah, it is. It is.
You want to try to describe this plot?
So,
it's in 3 chapters.
It's in 3 chapters. It's about a young boy named Chiron, who in the first part is called Little because he's little. And
he's a small
teeny tiny little boy. Alex R. Hibbert. I mean, little teeny tiny little kid.
Yeah.
Powerful eyes. And the second part is when he's in high school and he goes by his name, Chiron. And the third part is many years later when he's in his late 20s.
And he calls himself Black.
Which is the name that his friend gave him
Mhm.
when he was a kid, when everybody called him Little and he didn't like being called Little. His friend called him Black,
Mhm.
and that was the Kevin,
Mhm.
um, and that's the person that he started to realize that he had romantic feelings for.
Right.
Even as young as he was at the start of the movie.
Mhm.
Um, so we get him, and he's being severely
Abused.
bullied,
Mhm.
and this man, Juan, played by Mahershala Ali,
Oscar winner.
for this and
Mhm.
you know for the other one, um, he kind of takes him under his wing because the kid's mother, um, Paula, played by Naomi Harris, who shot
Mhm.
her part in 3 days
Mhm.
because she was on a break from a press junket for Spectre,
Right.
the Bond movie Spectre, and she went in and she did these in 3 days, and she's shown in all three different stages of Chiron's life. So
Mhm.
one day was when he was a little kid. The next day was when he was a teenager. The next day was when when he was an adult, and then she went on her way, and she got nominated for an Oscar for this.
Right.
Probably should have won.
He
Well, this was Fences. I think Viola won, so
yeah.
Viola should have
Yeah.
won 40 Oscars before all that. But
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth about this movie is that the first time I've only seen this twice.
me too.
I saw it in the theater and then I saw it again last night.
I saw it in the theater and I saw it 2 nights ago.
I am the kind of person that when I watch a movie, I'm looking at the filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at what they're doing with their camera. I'm looking at what they're doing with their sound. I'm listening for what they're doing with their sound. As well as focusing on the story.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow the first time I didn't do that because I was concentrated on the story. But when I saw this last night, I went down a rabbit hole with this filmmaking because
It is beautiful.
it is beautifully done because everything is done deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a moment when he said, just turn the camera on and we'll just get what we get.
Right.
When we see Chiron running,
Mm-hmm.
there's all this chaos
Yeah.
because it's handheld.
Mm-hmm.
And he hides inside this building, and the sound is amplified. It's
Because
turned
it's
up a little
because
bit.
it's an empty build. It's
It's an abandoned building,
it's a crack house.
right? And they're throwing rocks at it,
Right.
and so it encapsulates his world, the world that goes on inside his mind,
Mm-hmm.
and how he deals with the world through chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And then he is found by this man named Juan, and the camera settles down, and he's sitting
It's
at
a
the
very
dinner table.
calming influence.
Right. He's sitting at the table with them. He takes him back home and he gives him something to eat. And he's sitting there with, Teresa,
Mm-hmm.
Janelle Monáe.
Janelle Monáe. Love her.
And she's very good in it, too.
She's good.
She plays his girlfriend. And there's this thing that Barry Jenkins does. He puts the camera between the actors.
Mm-hmm.
so that you're looking at Juan. You're not looking over Chiron's shoulder. You're
Right.
looking at him.
Right.
The camera floats between Juan and Teresa
Mm-hmm.
like this familial flow, this gentle flow
Mm-hmm.
that's a juxtaposition to the handheld when he's running away from the bullies.
Right.
So it calms down. And it's probably the first time that the movie, that it's the first time that he's experienced any kind of
Stability.
real flow.
Yeah.
Because when he goes home to his mother's a crack addict.
And
there are
also
moments,
a healthcare professional, which...
and also a healthcare professional. And when she talks to him, there are sentences that are fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
There are jump cuts. It's not like she's just having a conversation with him. There are moments when she cuts to saying something this way, and then she cuts to some. It's not what you expect. It's very fragmented.
Right, and that shows her frame of mind.
And his view of her,
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't know which mother he's going to get.
Right.
So everybody has this way about them that is expressed through the filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, or would like to believe, that's the reason this movie won Best Picture. Because this is a film. This is pure filmmaking.
Yeah, this is... I love that they took essentially non-professional actors for Chiron.
Right.
Or
There's three of them.
unknown,
three actors.
Unknown at the time actors. Because that kind of gives you an inroad. Fascinatingly, they all kind of... They could pass as older versions of each other.
You could believe that these people would grow into. You could believe that the little boy.
Three of these actors, could be each other at different stages of their lives.
I just saw the Judy Garland movie. Judy Garland movie, which keeps cutting back to her younger days when she made The Wizard of Oz, and I'm thinking this child is not going to grow into Renee Zellweger.
Right. It's like watching It's like watching How I Met Your Mother and wondering when the guy turns into Bob Saget because he's already in his mid-20s when it starts.
Or when you watch The Wonder Years and you think Fred Savage is going to grow into Daniel Stern. It's like, no, that's just not going to happen. But honestly, and one thing you didn't mention, one thing you barely touched on, he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is very, very aware of the fact that his realization that he's gay is starting at a very young age.
Because he's being bullied, he doesn't even know what it is.
Right.
They're calling him all kinds of pejorative slurs, and he just knows that they're assaulting him verbally. He has no idea what it means.
Yeah.
He has to ask Juan.
Yeah. That is the most heartbreaking thing I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
He's sitting there at that table. He's looking down. He's which, again, powerful eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And that tiny little voice, that tiny, tiny little voice, he asks him that question.
And you know what?
And Juan is surprised.
Yeah. And you know what surprised me even more? His answer.
Yeah.
Because
is that something that people call gay people
something
when they want them to feel bad, bad about themselves.
There is a lot of reticence in the larger black community, black American community, well, international black community, that is not not on board with accepting homosexuality within
Which is what
their
this
young
movie's
men.
about.
Yes, and the fact that he is a streetwise man who has obviously seen some stuff,
Mhm.
and he has that, you know, I don't want to say enlightened opinion, but he comes at it from a personal standpoint and not
Right.
a reactionary God don't like it and I don't either kind of a.
Well, go back to something that when we were talking about O.J. Made in America,
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about his father. They were talking about O.J.'s dad. Now, O.J.'s dad was gay,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy says, "In our world, that was the worst thing you could be."
Yeah.
Was a gay black man.
Yeah.
And I kind of took that into this
Well,
movie
right, yeah,
too, because
it's very prevalent, and it's it's showing good signs of moving in a positive direction.
yeah,
The more and more um, out black men there are
hmm
in media, in music and in film and television, um, the I think the looser that stranglehold gets, um, which is very encouraging,
yeah,
especially down where you are. It's a
yeah.
very, I mean, homosexuals in general down where you are not seen by the broader picture of the country as being all that tolerant. To say it,
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
you might
I
also
assure
be though.
you, I assure you, if you went to the Sidewalk Film Festival, it would change your mind.
Just because they're there
Because
doesn't mean they're not openly persecuted.
what I mean is, um, well, what I mean is when you sit there and you realize, I go to see a film like Alabama Bound, which is about a group of lesbian couples in Alabama and the struggles they're having,
Hmm.
just getting the rights to be married and things like that. And
The right to not get killed just because.
you see how many gay couples are attending the film, and then you see how many, how much sponsorship there is for Pride, how many there are for there's the Birmingham AIDS outreach and
Mhm.
all of those things, how much it is in Alabama. The thing is, the negative is what the rest of the country sees.
Because it's the
It's here.
loudest. It's the negative is
It's the
always the
loudest,
loudest,
right?
and
And it's in the government.
and
So
yeah, and to be honest, it's kind of like when you and I look around at uh, United States race relations,
mhm,
we can look out our door and see things that look very progressive and everything looks great, but we're not seeing the bad stuff because
yeah,
it's not they're not coming after us, so we don't get to
right.
experience it firsthand, and therefore we can say, and that's why so many people in the US are like, no, things are a lot better than it was. It's like, yeah, because you can't see the bad things. It's not that they're not
They're
happening.
It's not that they're not happening, but they're a lot better than they used to be.
Yeah, but when
Um,
you look at how it used to be, that's really not a very good benchmark.
but I mean, when you
Like,
you can the Supreme Court can pass a legislation saying yes, gay people can get married. That doesn't mean that they're still not going to get shit slung at them.
well, right, and
You know,
you might not drive down the road and see strange fruit hanging from the trees
Mhm.
as regularly as you would have 50 60 years ago, 70 years ago.
Hmm.
But there is still an absurd amount of violence against black people and gay people everywhere.
Hmm.
But in the South,
Also,
a lot.
also Hispanic people,
Mm-hmm.
Latino people,
Mm-hmm.
Muslims. You know,
Gays. Anybody who's not straight, white, and honestly
right?
male, because they like the white supremacists like to think that they're not
Supremacist.
gender exclusionary, but
Hmm.
they're not white supremacists, they're white male supremacists. They want their women to behave like June Cleaver, stay in the house, be barefoot and pregnant and making the meals, and also saying, hey, white people are the best.
Well, I've often said that the white supremacists, particularly the ones that were fighting against the civil rights movement, wanted African Americans to be like happy little elves.
Mm-hmm.
Serving in our houses, driving our cars, doing, the menial labor,
Right,
and
here, look,
just
you're not
staying in
slaves anymore,
place.
be happy.
Yeah. But this movie is
Which
specifically,
is exactly what Harriet actually literally says.
yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that, but when she says, I know my people, my people will be free. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, but what does that really mean when you look at history? It's like they're basically saying in Harriet, stop bitching about it because you're not slaves anymore, and
Yeah.
that really upset me. This story does not do that at all.
This story is,
Human.
and I like this because this story is about, specifically about a black man who is gay. You couldn't make this about a woman. You couldn't make this about a white man.
No.
This has to be specifically about
And
him.
when you're also the thing that I think is miraculous about this is that it is not a movie about gay black men.
Right.
It is
It's
a
about
movie about
this.
Chiron
Right.
and what
About this
he
man.
went through. It's not claiming universality,
Right.
and it doesn't expect you to equate it down the line.
Yeah.
This is the movie that all movies about white people are, because
Yeah.
it's when excuse me, in the United States of America, when a black filmmaker gets a chance to make a film, 9 chances out of 10 it is seen as representative of the entire skin color, regardless of where they
This
are.
one is very specific.
But and there's a lot of pressure on black filmmakers to adequately and accurately represent who they want to be seen outside of the stereotypes, to blow down the stereotypes. This is
Bad
just,
Boys.
yeah, this is just a story about a kid.
Hmm.
It's not transferable.
No.
It's not universal. It's
Hmm.
not, and it doesn't ever try to say this is the plight of all young black men in America, young black gay men in America. It's like this is the plight of this kid. There are some truths that extend out beyond this story: the bullying, the unsure of whether they want to or whether they feel like they can even act on their feelings.
Well, the thing also is, juxtaposed against the chaotic moments of, the handheld camera
Mm-hmm.
and the fragmented scenes with the mother, is also an opening shot with Juan talking to, because Juan's a drug dealer, and he's talking to one of his associates, one of the kids who works for him. The camera is moving
Yeah.
around the characters
Because Juan has
as
an
it
orbit.
would be, as it would be in Bad Boys.
Mhm.
So this is what we expect
Mm-hmm.
because this is a movie featuring a drug dealer. So it's saying without the words in the visual language, saying this is what we expect.
Right.
This is what you've come to expect from watching a movie about a black man.
And then you find out that Juan is the hustler with the heart of gold.
He is. He is. And is selling to Chiron's mother.
Indirectly, but yes, he is the provider
Indirectly,
in that whole neighborhood. And that scene between them.
But also, this isn't Clockers. This
Right,
is you
no.
don't see him whipping out a gun and shoving it in somebody's mouth. You don't see all of that.
There is very little violence in this, and what there is.
The only violence is necessary.
Yeah, for
Well,
the
I mean,
story.
necessary
For the
to the
story,
story.
yes. That's
But
like,
it's fascinating.
there's no gun violence in the movie.
There's no gun violence. The fascinating thing is that once you get to where he's talking to this kid, and the things that he says to him, when he says, he asks him that question, that horrible question he asks him. He says, somebody can call you that. He said, what's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between being gay and being... It's the word that I like to call the other F word. The one that we don't use anymore.
Do you know why that became a slur?
I don't.
Against gay people. So here, I always love linguistic entomology is a
Word origins with Dr. Heller.
yes, it's a fascination. It's not quite a hobby with me, but I drill down on sayings and words, and in England, way back in the day, they used to call logs faggots.
Okay.
And like firewood, put another faggot on the fire. Then they started calling cigarettes fags because they were smaller versions of that.
Mm-hmm.
They're calling them gay people that because they thought that the best idea to deal with them would be burning them.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's a piece of firewood, and it is also a derogatory slur.
That you don't hear as much anymore. Used to hear it all the time.
Oh. It used to just flow off of people's tongues like it was.
I was a teenager in the 80s. I'm gonna guess there were probably 5 days in my teenage years that I didn't hear that word.
Yeah.
At least sometime.
I was
Even from people close to me.
I was a kid growing up in the 90s. I was in high school in the 90s. Still.
But honestly, and he sits there and he says, people can call you that. That don't mean you have to stand there and take it.
Right.
Because I like the questions he's asking. Is what's the difference?
Yeah.
It's the first time this kid has ever had anybody to explain something to him.
This is the first time he's ever actually able to talk to anybody about just about anything.
Right.
I mean, that's why he doesn't talk.
Because his environment is so volatile. It's so hostile and
Closed
he
off.
can't.
And
closed off.
His mother is not an open person.
No.
Because she, in the same sentence, could praise him as the greatest thing that's ever happened to her and condemn him for being the thing that ruined her life.
Right.
Like, in the same sentence.
Right.
She could just turn on that
See,
dime.
again, the fragments.
Yeah. And that's what he knows. He knows an erratic mother and abusive kids at school.
Right.
and his one friend.
Right. And it's in a world, and I kind of relate to this a little bit from my own experience. That one person that will, that one person that can explain something to you with a sense of clarity, at which they're not trying to. Well, don't worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I got a lot of that when I was a kid.
One. Basically, you know, this is something you're going to have to deal with, so you got to know about it.
Yeah.
And like, this isn't going to. He knows it's not going to go away.
Yeah. And how old is he? How old is he at the beginning of this movie?
Juan?
No, little.
Little?
Is he
8, 10?
7? When I first saw him, I thought he was like 6 or 7 because he's so tiny.
He's got to be. He's
a little guy.
Yeah, he is. Oh, he's in Black Panther.
Really?
One of the kids playing basketball, or one of the kids in Oakland at some point.
Okay.
But he's got to be probably, I'm gonna say 10.
Mm.
I'm looking him up now, but it doesn't have how
Just
old he really is.
starting to inch into those prepubescent years.
Yeah.
Just slightly starting to inch toward it. And he doesn't have anyone to hold his hand. He doesn't have anyone to kind of explain things to him. And Juan is that.
Yeah. And he buries himself in himself. He just closes himself off to anything and everything, and just introverts.
Yeah, because everything is picking on him and just being
everything
horrible
is just
to
terrible
him. And
for him. Yeah, I mean,
he doesn't have a safe harbor.
No. Until
the most beautiful moment in this film is when Juan takes him to the beach and he explains him. He sits there and he explains to him, and I didn't know he was Cuban.
Right.
I didn't know Juan was Cuban. And he's sitting there, he's talking about what you quoted at the beginning of the film. We've always been black people. Always going to be black people.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, there's black people.
And the key to the title is something that an old lady in his neighborhood used to say, that in the moonlight, black boys turn blue.
Yeah. But that was also the title of the story that this movie came from.
Wasn't it a play?
Yeah.
An unproduced play?
Yes.
Just like Casablanca.
Well, not unproduced anymore, but.
Well, it was at the time. Just like Everybody Comes to Rick's.
The most beautiful scene is when he takes him to that beach and he takes him out to the water, and he's teaching him how to float. He's got him up. That is a beautiful image.
Because it's the first time that Little is ever able to consciously let go and trust somebody.
Yeah.
He's never been able to have that level of trust before. And it amazed me this time. I didn't realize how little Mahershala Ali is actually in the film.
He's only in the first part.
Yeah, because he's dead by the second part. They don't really say
Did they ever
how
say how he died?
No, they just the kids picking on him said, "Oh, Juan's been dead a minute."
Okay.
So he's
because they never tell you that.
No, one can assume how it happened.
He. But he becomes such a large presence. It's that thing that happens.
He's not in the movie, but he never goes away.
Right. Um, it's that thing that happens in life where, and I don't know if you experience this, but someone will say something to you, and it can even be the most offhanded, not even, someone can say something to you, and it will stick in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about negative, I'm talking about negative and positive. I'm talking about, it can be a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
Someone can say the least little thing to you, and it sticks in your brain, and it stays there
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of your life, and you never forget it.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how the brain works. It's the woman on the ferry with the
Mm-hmm.
white parasol.
Right. Right.
Mr. Bernstein in Citizen Kane talks about that woman he saw in 1896.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "I never met her, but I think about her. As not a month
I
goes
only
by."
saw her for a few seconds.
Right. Or you see something, or somebody
Yeah.
says something, and
Yeah.
it sticks to the walls of your brain, and you never forget it.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how that works.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very much a movie about that,
Mm-hmm.
because what Juan tells him stays with him the rest of his life. We meet him. The movie then cuts to the second part, which is called Chiron, which he has taken his name back.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to take the names people call you.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes the name back. This is the hardest part of the film to watch.
Yeah, it is.
Because he's now a teenager.
Mm-hmm. And his mother has gone all the way down.
Yeah. She's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of this film is Chiron is not letting us in.
Right.
We, the viewer. So a lot of the film, we see the back of his head.
Mm-hmm.
So we never see the emotional pull that he has. But the thing is, this I think is the most important because it speaks of the world that he lives in.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a code of conduct that is enforced upon him,
Mm-hmm.
that he has to be a certain way, that he has to act a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
that if you don't do this, you are effectively an outcast. And that is imposed most heavily upon Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
This bully.
Who, if you've watched Castle Rock on Hulu season 1, he is the main character in season 1 of Castle Rock. Yeah, and
I didn't know that.
It was a really good show too.
He
well, the guy that plays Kevin at the end, is in Castle Rock.
Is this before? And I'm mixing it up. Is this the fight? Is this before or after the scene on the beach?
Which fight?
The one where the bully tells him to punch him in the face.
Oh, after. It's like a day or two after.
Because I couldn't remember. It
was barely after.
Because he gives him a hand job.
Mm-hmm.
Which I've told this before. I went to see this in the theater, and I'm sitting there, and afterwards, this elderly couple walked out, and they barraged the manager. I was like, I can't believe you'd show a movie like that. I want my money back. And I'm thinking, you sat through this whole movie.
Yeah.
And that scene is not at the end of the movie.
No, it's in the middle.
There's an hour to go.
Yeah.
But you sat through the whole movie. People fascinate me.
Yeah.
But the code of conduct, the expectations upon manhood in this part of the world that the world that this movie takes place in
Which is
is
Florida, so it's
exhausting.
already going to be weird.
Yeah, it's exhausting
Yeah.
because you have to talk a certain way, you have to look a certain way, you have to stand a certain way, you have to talk about women a certain way, you have to just, and if you don't, then you're going to get bullied.
Yeah.
I kind of understand because I went to high school in the 80s. And there's this tipping point that if you're not.
Judd Nelson was a real huge presence in your high school.
Yeah, pretty much. If you're not this way, if you say a certain thing, if you move a certain way, somebody's going to accuse you of being gay. Mm-hmm. And you didn't want that. Because being gay was the worst thing you could possibly be. It's exhausting, which is why most of my friends were girls. Because I could actually have an intelligent conversation with girls that I couldn't have with guys. But I'm going to tell you, when he whacks that kid over the back of the head with a chair...
Isn't that one of the greatest cinematic moments you could ever hope for?
That is the biggest release.
I know.
Because we follow him for 3 minutes as he goes to school.
Walking through those doors, and he's just got this sense of purpose.
This look on his face, like, I'm going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to hurt somebody.
He walks into the room, grabs the chair,
and doesn't even hesitate, and just whacks him over the back of the head. The only thing about it is I wanted to know what happened next. Because...
he got sent to juvie, and then they went to Atlanta.
Yeah. That was satisfying.
Yeah.
But just the
because that's the kid that has been after him for years and years, all the way from the beginning. He was one of the first kids at the beginning chasing him.
Well, I got to talk about this because this is something neither of us are going to ever be able to figure out. I don't understand or identify in any way with bullies.
Yeah, no.
I don't understand the thrill of that. I don't understand it's completely beyond me.
Well,
I never engaged in this.
I was never a bully. I worked against them when I was in.
I was on the wrong end of them.
I was never bullied. There are other reasons for that. But I would do what I could to prevent bullying. I
did everything I could too.
But and when somebody got in my face, I just stood up in their face next to them and just didn't back down, and then people didn't bully me. I never got into a fight, but I never had to.
My bullying mostly was limited to the 7th and 8th grade. Now, and then after I got out of that, I never got in a fight again.
Now, I understand to a point why it happens. Many times, those kids are abused by their family at home, either an older sibling or a parent, and they feel helpless. And when they are put into a dynamic where there are people smaller than them, all they know is to bully that smaller person. It helps
Or-
them feel bigger because they're getting recognition that they don't get at home because they're the ones getting put upon. So it's a way of trying to regain control. It's also how people explain when they do self-harm, when they cut themselves. It's like they do that because they can control that.
Or they have a parent who doesn't parent.
Yeah.
Who doesn't use a corrective measure and just
Well, yeah, there's two kinds of bullies. There's the abused bully and there's the overpraised, my little boy could never do anything like that. What are you talking about?
or I really don't care what he does as long as he doesn't drag it in the front door.
Well, yeah, there's also that.
That's most of I think what I ran into was I don't care what you do outside this house, just don't be dragging it in the front door.
Right.
It's lazy parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a form of it, because there are not going when there are no repercussions for what you do, you'll do anything.
Mm-hmm.
When you persistently know that you can get away with something and you're not scared of adults and you're not made to fear authority figures, you'll do anything.
Donald Trump.
That is setting off. That is lighting a fuse.
Mm-hmm.
For later on.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's a theory. That's the only theory that I've got. But I can't identify
Oh no, I
at
can't.
all in any capacity. I can understand. Here's the thing. I can understand a guy who robs a bank before I can understand bullying.
Oh yeah.
You know, because at least I know what they're after.
And, you know, when you get to that point, unless you're like a career criminal who I rob banks,
Mhm.
there's a reason.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time bank robbers are dog day afternoon, hell or high water kind
Yeah.
of situations, and not heist situations.
They're Ryan Gosling in The Place Beyond the Pines.
Yeah.
They're just running in and
because they need the money for something very quickly, and they've gotten to a desperate point.
or they like the thrill.
See, that's
Some
the
people
part,
are adrenaline junkies and they like the thrill.
That's the part that I can't identify with.
Right.
I can identify with desperate.
But I can't understand the thrill of making somebody feel horrible
Yeah,
about themselves.
I don't.
That's something I've not ever been able to figure out. That is one of the reasons I picked this film, because I wanted to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
It was a persistent problem when I was in school, but fortunately for me, it was only limited to a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I did
This
get in some
poor-
fights.
This poor kid. This whole life.
Yeah, but this poor kid, this kid goes through years and years and years of this,
Decades.
because he just doesn't seem to have a. I'm actually surprised, and maybe you were too, that he didn't turn into Arthur Fleck. You could make a movie. You could easily connect.
Yeah.
You could easily connect this kid with somebody like Arthur Fleck. Because
But Arthur Fleck
had a mental illness.
It never was particularly stable. Yes, and
Yeah.
it was 1980s, early 80s, so mental health care, you know, deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of things that happen then that led to a lot of violent things could have been averted.
Right.
Here, though,
But you can see how
I
the years of persistent bullying can cause someone to snap. Because
Oh,
when he
well,
hits
yeah.
that kid with a chair, that could have easily gone into a lot of really nasty, unhealthy directions in which he is doing this pretty much to anyone who gives him a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that suddenly becomes his safe house.
Mm-hmm.
And it can turn into knives, it can turn into guns, it can turn into a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So you can I say it's a connection only because I can see how someone would snap. Now Arthur Fleck is has a mental disorder, clearly
Probably more than one.
exacerbated by the environment in which he lives. Chiron lives in a hostile, cold, mean-spirited, unyielding environment
And
that
he
is
is the
just as
exact
hostile.
opposite of that environment.
That is just, I think, is just as hostile toward him as Arthur Fleck's environment is to him.
But
The
Chiron
difference
has a good heart.
Right.
And
Well, Arthur Fleck probably did too, at some point. But the thing is, and this moves into the third part, he has become what this environment has expected him to be.
and all of the negative parts of his mentor Juan.
Right.
He
becomes a drug dealer.
He's not just a drug dealer, man. He's got the Crown Royale top on it on his dashboard, like Juan did.
He's got the caps.
Yeah, I mean he's
I
made.
can't remember what he calls them, but it's the caps on his teeth.
The grill.
The grill.
Or
he calls them something
fronts.
else. I can't remember.
Fronts.
The fronts.
Which in a way is exactly what they are. They're a front.
Yeah. It's exactly, yeah.
He's made himself into who he needed to survive.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you came upon a guy who looked like this, would you mess with him? If you were a bully, would you mess with him?
He is a very solidly built young man, yes.
Yeah. He is, and I'm going to say this, when you see him, the third chapter is called Black, because that's the name he's adopted. His physical look is scare Whitey to death.
Especially
seriously.
When he's got the grills in.
And he's huge. He's built himself up. And it's a protective layer. And what he reveals about himself, he is gay. He is accepted that. But he's never apparently had a partner.
Except Kevin. That feels like that is one of the most beautiful statements in the movie. When he says, he's trying to work up to it, and he just says finally to Kevin, "You're the only man that's ever touched me, and after that night, I didn't really let anybody else ever touch me in any way again." I love the ending. Just that last shot of.
Well, you didn't need any more.
No.
Once you get to that point, it's like, and I had only seen the film once until last night, and I've been really kind of backing off the film because of that ending and because it does feel it felt a little bit like it came up short. But then I realized you don't really need anything else.
No, the ending to me is perfect because I don't need to see Chiron and Kevin the I don't know, hand holding couple time.
Mhm.
I don't need that, because just them sitting on the couch, Chiron finally letting his vulnerability out, or
Mhm.
Black letting his vulnerability out.
Right.
Um, and just Kevin's just holding him,
Mhm.
because that's not anything that he ever really had.
Right.
It's beautiful.
And he comes to him. I think isn't he working in he's working in a restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
or does he own it? I can't remember if he owns it.
Oh no, he's a cook. He's just the cook there,
And he
and
drives down to see him.
right from Atlanta
Right.
down to, I think, Miami,
Hmm. Well, most of the movie takes place in Miami.
somewhere in Florida.
But he drives down to see him because of this. Now, this is something that
Well,
we talked about earlier.
he got a phone call.
Yeah.
Kevin called him.
This is something that we talked about a little bit earlier when we talked about the Age of Innocence. That one person
Mm-hmm.
that somehow, for some reason, just sticks to you,
Mm-hmm.
like the Countess did in that film.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin is that to
Yeah.
him. That no matter what relationships that you have, it's Ilsa and it's Elsa in Casablanca.
Mm-hmm.
It's that thing that you've locked away in your heart,
Mm-hmm.
and you've never really let anybody else, and nobody else has been able to really get there.
Right.
Um, that deep recess of your heart and your thinking. They've grabbed hold of something
Right.
that nobody else has been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, it's Kevin. And just the idea that he could say that to him,
Yeah.
I didn't need scenes of them as a couple.
Mm-mm.
I just needed him to be able to get there
And
and say that to
he
him.
finally could. Like I don't know what he wanted from facing Kevin again. I don't know.
I think that's it.
I I don't I'm not even convinced that he knew exactly what he wanted,
Yeah.
or if he was going to be able to bring himself to even talk about the moment they shared
Mm-hmm.
when they were 16. Um but you saw he really wanted to talk about that. Like that's why
Right.
he drove down there, was because he wanted to see him. He wanted to tell him.
You were the great love of my
Yeah,
life.
Black wanted to tell Kevin, you've meant the most to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's taking a great risk, because he doesn't know if that was just something that Kevin was doing in high school, if that was really how he felt about him, or if it was just an experiment. He doesn't know, because they never talked about it. Because the next day he gets punched in the face, and then the next day after that he gets.
And the look of heartbreak on his face when he's doing that.
And the thing is,
It's just
it's heartbreaking, because he knows Kevin isn't doing it of his own free will.
right.
And Chiron knows that Kevin isn't the one to hate as a result of these actions.
Because doesn't the bully tell him something? I can't remember exactly what he says to him, but he says something about he's the one that instigates this, and I can't remember exactly why, but there was some reason. There was some reason for it. but he gets him to do that, and it's horrifying. It really is.
Oh, it's
just
because there was this old game that they used to play that he would pick out a
knock down,
target.
stay down.
Yeah, and he would pick out a target for Kevin to go hit until they stay down. And
But I'm not sure exactly why Kevin went along with this.
because if he didn't, he was going to be on the receiving end.
Okay,
He did it so that he didn't get beat.
that's horrifying.
Yeah.
Again,
But Chiron knows this. There's no hard. You can tell in his face. You know, I wish you hadn't done this, but I understand why you did it, and I'm not mad at you for it.
yeah,
You know, I attacked the person who was directly responsible, not the person
Not you.
who, that attack, the chair over the head,
Mhm.
and it wasn't Kevin, told Kevin, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I blame him.
I'm going to be honest with you. When they were sitting in that restaurant and they were talking, I did not know where this was going.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Neither one of them did either, and I think that was
Yeah.
that was the beautiful part of it, is that we were as up in the air, hoping for the same kind of answer that Black was.
Yeah.
You know, and he doesn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Kevin sure didn't expect to see him.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know what to expect. And we're just sitting there like, are they going to do this in public? Are they going to do this in private? Are they never going to talk about it? Is this
What
gonna
exactly are they going to do?
Right. Is this going to be one of those, we saw each other and unspokenly declared ourselves to each other, but we'll never act on it, and then they go their separate ways? That is the other way that this could have. That is another way that this could have ended. They could have had that dinner, and then both gone off their separate ways, unspoken but knowing.
I so hate movies that tiptoe around this.
Mhm.
This tiptoes around it only for a purpose. But,
Because it's an awkward thing to just bring up out of the blue,
right.
you know, without
But
getting
I mean,
any.
what I mean is tiptoe around it and never really say it.
Right.
He does say it. He
Yeah.
comes to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes to a beautiful ending.
And
you don't feel like you need any more.
no, certainly not. And you know, as we mentioned, this is based on a play,
Mhm.
but Jenkins interwove things from his life into the screenplay.
Right.
Because he was a gay black kid in Florida growing up. Obviously, he didn't go the way Chiron did, because he's a
Yeah,
filmmaker and not a drug dealer, but
Barry Jenkins' current partner is Lulu Wang, who made one of my favorite films from last year, if not my favorite film,
fair.
The Farewell.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, he kind of understands being ostracized for not following the path, because his partner is a Chinese woman.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, you know, understanding that that thing that falls on you
Right.
when you don't follow the path.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched all. I'm going to tell you something. I watched, coming back to the beginning of our conversation, I watched this movie last night, and all of these things that are coming to me, the filmmaking, this specific nature of this character, the specific nature of what happens to him, the specific environment in which he exists. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, enough Academy voters saw this and recognized it and said, this is the best work we've done all year.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
It is not a safe harbor. It's not a movie made to sell to all quadrants.
No.
It's not a movie that would make $150 million on its opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very specific film
Right.
about a very specific individual
Mm-hmm.
in a very specific environment.
Right.
That's encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
But then they give the Oscar to Green Book, but we won't go there.
See, that's I mean,
2 steps forward, one step back.
It's like it's oh boy, I can't
say enough good things about this movie.
it's a remarkable film, and I am so glad it got the praise that it deserved, and it got the recognition that it deserved. Although not all of the recognition it deserved, everything it got it deserved. All of the recognition it got it deserved, and then some.
Yeah, none of the 3 actors were nominated.
No, which is ridiculous. But I guess in a way, they probably didn't know how to.
Yeah.
Because it's the same.
Because which one do you pick?
Right, or do you nominate all 3 of them for the same but it's not the same performance because it's their own performances with that. And is it a supporting role because it's the main character, but it's not the main actor?
But they did pick Mahershala Ali, who I will say gives the best performance in the movie.
He's so good. I love Janelle Monáe in this too.
I do too.
I love her pretty much anything. But she was even good in Harriet.
Mm-hmm.
In a thankless role, but still.
Yeah. Same thing with Hidden Figures.
Yep. So I think that I am grateful that this has given us Mahershala Ali with clout.
Yes.
This is what gave him clout, and I am forever grateful because he's always been good, always been great, all the way back to, I mean, most people don't even realize that he was the doctor in Curious Case of Benjamin Button. No, he didn't really
Was he on The Wire? Is it The Wire he was?
No, he might have been. I don't know. I didn't see The Wire, but I know that he came to real prominence from Luke Cage.
Okay.
Because he was Cottonmouth.
It's Cottonmouth, yeah.
First season
Scary
of Luke
villain.
Cage. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Just every scene with it. I was upset that he wasn't the villain for the whole season.
But this, in his office, this ginormous, cavernous office, and behind his desk is this enormous, giant canvas painting of Biggie Smalls.
Yeah. From an album cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that he was able to get back-to-back Oscars. I wish it had been for something very different. But to say how much power he now has in Hollywood, the day after he won for Green Book, he called Kevin Feige and said, "I want to be Blade." And Kevin Feige said, "Okay, we'll work that into everything." Because he's like, what do you say, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just called him and said, "I want to be Blade. Let's work this out."
The man just won his 2nd Oscar.
Yeah, in 2 years.
In 2 years.
After coming up from relative obscurity. And, yeah, I want to be Blade. Okay.
And
They had no plans of introducing Blade in the MCU. And then they're like, okay, yep, you want it? We'll do it for you.
We'll take it. Yeah.
What do you say to that? It's like, well, we weren't really thinking about working him into the MCU for... No. Okay.
That's what I want.
Okay.
I hate that Netflix had to cancel all those shows because they were so good. But
They were.
But Disney...
They didn't want their properties on other things, And
I understand.
I understand that.
It could have
But
made a deal with them.
They could have made a deal with them. They could have done just about anything because they're TVMA and they're not going to show up on Disney Plus.
Right.
Now, if they had like you pay an extra $1 a month and you can get access to all of the Fox and
Disney's not
Touchstone
going to go that way.
They're not. And it's a travesty because that means like a huge bulk of 20th Century Fox stuff is just hard to find now.
Which makes me wonder why, moving off of Moonlight, which makes me wonder why Indiana Jones is not on Disney Plus.
It is odd.
That is odd because it's a Lucasfilm property.
Mm-hmm. And they're making Disney, a 5th one.
Yeah, they're making a 5th one. They just announced that. Well, they're starting in April.
Yeah.
And but I don't know if maybe they're just too violent.
They've got the MCU on there.
That's true, but that's a Disney property.
Yeah, but
this is a
technically
property.
The first one's all the way up through Avengers. Were distributed by, well, Incredible Hulk was Universal, but the rest of them were Paramount.
Incredible Hulk is not on Disney Plus.
No, because it's
and neither's Homecoming.
Or Far From Home, because that's not the deal that they made with Sony, and that's not the deal that they made with
Which really screwed up my continuity when I was trying to watch them in order for this show.
Oh, see, I have all of them on Blu-ray up to Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't have Captain Marvel, Endgame, or Far From Home yet, but they're all on the shelf.
And when they landed on Disney Plus, you were like, there's no hurry.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't really care. I'm watching them on Disney Plus, prepping for May, but only because it's so that I can switch between my office and my living room, watching them back and forth if I have to. So,
but as far as Indiana Jones, I'm a little confused because it's a Lucasfilm property. I don't know what parts of Lucasfilm they own.
All of it.
They own all of it, so which
Lock,
means technically
Stock, and Barrel. They own Howard the Duck. They own Willow. They own...
Because Willow's on...
yes, it is. They own Indiana
Plus.
Jones. They own Industrial Light and Magic. They own Skywalker Sound. They own Lucasfilm.
So does that mean that Indiana Jones... Because they're on Netflix.
Well, that's probably why. Because if you remember... The Last Jedi wasn't on Disney Plus for a long time because they had and Solo too. They had the deal with Netflix, and until that ran out, they can't put them on there.
Yeah.
So probably as soon as their leasing deal to Netflix expires, those will all be on there, and they might even be pushing for. They might put them out. When 5 is coming out, they might put them on there to build.
Well, I don't know because the first two, according to Disney standards, would seem to be the ones that would be TVMA because they're the more violent of the series.
Yes, but
the first one especially.
Yeah. However, it's largely bloodless, and
the first one. The second one's basically bloodless, but the first one is.
There's some blood, but I mean, then look at Endgame, where they show you Thor chopping off Thanos' head. I mean,
yeah.
when you put it into context, and how many dismemberments and decapitations are in Star Wars in the sequel trilogy alone.
But they don't show it to you.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, you're not watching it. You know,
yeah, you kind of.
it's not like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Well,
I mean,
I would say because it says PG on it, they could get away with not caring that much about it. Because I know there's stuff on there that probably you wouldn't assume would be.
Mm.
Like, I mean, you look at The Mandalorian. They produced that, and there's people getting their heads cut off and cut in half and cut down, and I mean, that was a very violent show.
Yeah.
But it's probably just because they don't yet have the streaming rights to them.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure they're not only are Indiana Jones on Netflix, but they're also on Hulu and Amazon. Like, there was a big get it out there kind of a thing for those. But that's not Moonlight. Thank you for indulging us on our little side trip there.
We do that.
Yeah. What do we have? What do we have coming up?
We're gonna end Black History Month by any means necessary. It's your choice.
It's my choice.
You're the one that's gonna.
It's my choice, and it is.
I opened Black History Month with Whitey.
I am closing it with decidedly not.
Yeah.
Spike
there are
Lee's
white people in this one.
Spike
Unlike
Lee's
the other
epic masterpiece.
Yeah.
Malcolm X.
Yeah.
I had to, and
Malcolm X.
It's brilliant. It's a magnificent film all the way around.
Short shrifted by the Oscars.
100%.
100%. Well, not 100%. It got 2 nominations. But
yeah, but it still got the shrift because it didn't get anything, and it should have been nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay. It should like there's
should have been all over
costume design and production design and cinematographer Ernest Dickerson. I mean, it got screwed. But that is what we're ending the month on. What are we starting next month on?
We're gonna have a little fun. Coming out of Black History Month, we're gonna have a little fun. I've decided that we're gonna talk from stem to stern about Return of the Jedi. This is going to be an odd show because we're going to talk about this film from back to front. We're going to laugh about it. We're going to analyze it. We're just going to have fun. And the reason that I picked Return of the Jedi out of all of the Star Wars movies is because, and I think you'll agree, this is the goofiest.
Yeah. Yeah, I can support that.
It's the goofiest, and it's probably the one
it's the most
where they went
fun.
crazy with the creativity.
Yeah, and it's so fun.
Yeah,
it's so fun. It might be the most fun Star Wars movie outside of maybe A New Hope. Because A New Hope is a blast, but Return of the Jedi is just fun.
And Harrison Ford is just hamming it up in that movie.
He's having so much fun.
It's just, he's just hamming it. I mean, it's it's great. And we never tire of talking about Star Wars.
No.
We're hardcore. We're hardcore fans. I mean, and we want to talk about Star Wars.
Any excuse for Star Wars is fine with me.
Yeah.
And then we're moving on from Return of the Jedi, and we're going back to Sweden. But
Yay.
not Bergman. Lasse Hallström's Oscar-winning My Life as a Dog, which you have not seen.
I have not seen.
It's one more in my series of coming-of-age movies that I cannot get enough of.
Every time I see a Lasse Hallström movie, it's like Lars von Trier. Every time I see a Lasse Hallström movie, I need a couple of days to get over it.
This is not that. This is not like that. This is anything that you know of Lasse Hallström. This movie is better.
The first Lasse Hallström movie I saw was the ABBA movie. Not a good place to start.
I think this was my first one, and Cider House Rules, and then Chocolat.
Hated the Cider House Rules.
I liked it when I saw it the first time. I tried rewatching it, and it didn't
Michael
work
Caine,
out.
what is that accent?
I don't know.
What is that accent?
And then we're going to the prize winner of Defiance, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And we're
Which
rounding
you've never seen.
Which I have never seen. And we're rounding out the month of March with Rian Johnson's directorial debut masterpiece, Brick.
His directorial debut.
Yes, Brick.
Brick.
Which I love.
Which I only saw recently.
I've seen this
47 times.
7 or 8 times. I adore Brick. So that's what we have coming up. We thank you for sticking with us. You can find all of our back episodes at thepodbaydorspodcast.wordpress.com. You can listen to us actively on iTunes and YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at pod_bay. Copy and paste that over into Patreon. Find us that way, and you can kick us whatever you think we might deserve. We can't pay
whatever you think we're worth.
Yeah, we can't pay you, so that's not we're not going to pay you to listen. So that's not an option.
Listen to our podcast. I get a quarter. Be my friend.
We thank you so much for listening, and the Pod Bay doors are now closed.
Mission has been completed.
When I was in the 3rd grade, I thought that I was gay, cause I could draw. My uncle was, and I kept my room straight. I told my mom, tears rushing down my face. She's like, Ben, you've loved girls since before pre-K. Trippin'. Yeah, I guess she had a point, didn't she? Bunch of stereotypes all in my head. I remember doing the math, like, yeah, I'm good at Little League. A preconceived idea of what it all meant. But those that like the same sex had the characteristics. The right-wing conservatives think it's a decision, and you can be cured with some treatment in religion. Man-made rewiring of a predisposition, playing God. Oh nah, here we go. America the brave still fears what we don't know. And God loves all his children, it's somehow forgotten, but we paraphrase a book written 3,500 years ago. I don't know.
And I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. And I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm. She keeps me warm. She keeps me warm. She keeps me warm.
If I was gay, I would think hip-hop hates me. Have you read the YouTube comments lately? Man, that's gay, gets dropped on the daily. We become so numb to what we're saying. A culture founded from oppression, yeah, we don't have acceptance for 'em. Call each other faggots behind the keys of a message board. A word rooted in hate, yet our genre still ignores it. Gay is synonymous with the lesser. It's the same hate that's caused wars from religion, gender to skin color, the complexion of your pigment. The same fight that led people to walkouts and sit-ins. It's human rights for everybody, there is no difference. Live on and be yourself. When I was at church, they taught me something else. If you preach hate at the service, those words aren't anointed. That holy water that you soak in has been poisoned. When everyone else is more comfortable remaining voiceless rather than fighting for humans that have had their rights stolen. I might not be the same, but that's not important. No freedom till we're equal. Damn right I support it. Press play, don't press pause. Progress march on, with the veil over our eyes. We turn our back on the cause, till the day that my uncles can be united by law. When kids aren't walking around the hallway, plagued by pain in their heart. A world so hateful, some would rather die than be who they are. And a certificate on paper isn't gonna solve it all, but it's a damn good place to start. No law is gonna change us, we have to change us. Whatever God you believe in, we come from the same one. Strip away the fear, underneath it's all the same love. About time that we raised up.
And I can't change.